Today, the operating system is the large language model. It's the LLM that has the ability to do prediction and reasoning and so on. And the way you code is, instead of writing the code in Java or C++ or C, you code in English. AI is only as good as the data that gives it context. And most of the data that is needed for powering AI ends up being unstructured. Search in the age of AI has now become incredibly important, way more important than ever before. You use ChatGPT today for the kinds of things that in the past you would have used Google for. There is a second kind of search problem, which is searching on all the data inside your organizational boundary. Google doesn't have any insight into that because it can't look within your organization. So that's really the problem that Elastic solved. All the way to a vibe coding platform like Cursor, where the AI is driving the process and the human is verifying. These vibe coding tools understand the syntax. They know exactly how to frame things. So you're not gonna sit down and learn Python or learn Rust or whatever like you used to 10, 20 years ago.
Generative AI is rewriting what's possible. But there's a catch. Without the right data infrastructure, even the smartest model is just a toy. That's where Elastic comes in. At ElasticON Bengaluru, I sat down with Ashutosh Kulkarni, the CEO of Elastic, to dig into how search is morphing into the spine of AI itself. Because here's what's happening right now. The company launched EASE, Elastic AI SOC Engine, a context-aware AI layer for existing security systems that helps reduce alert fatigue and speed investigations. And earlier this year, Elastic rolled out LLM Observability for Google Vertex AI, giving teams real-time insight into model behavior, prompt usage, and performance. To top it off, Elastic is partnering with Dell and NVIDIA to bring semantic vector-powered search into massive unstructured data lakes. So when we talk about search, we're not just indexing text, we're shaping the context layer through which AI will understand, reason, and act. In this conversation, Ashutosh breaks down what Elastic sees as the next frontier, how India may be the testing ground for search AI's real revolution, and how every AI you build tomorrow might stand on the shoulders of search engines built today. Just a disclaimer, my voice might have not been at its best when we shot this interview, but I'm sure you can bear through it. This is Point Break. So thank you so much, Ashutosh, for taking the time to speak to us.
Thank you.
When most people hear about Elastic, they think about search. But what is an underlying story for Elastic that people don't know much about?
The best way to think about Elastic is we are the best open source platform for unstructured data. When you're dealing with unstructured information, Word documents, PDFs, machine-generated log files, images, etc., the hardest part with it is being able to analyze it, being able to query that kind of data is incredibly hard. You can't put it in a traditional database. You can't query it using traditional database techniques like SQL and so on. And so search platforms were invented to solve that problem. They were invented to make it possible to get value by querying unstructured data, right? And for that reason, we can deal with any kind of data. And so what's happened over the years is Elasticsearch has become the place where every organization, every major government agency around the world puts all of their unstructured, messy data. Now, AI happened, and when AI happened, people realized that AI is only as good as the data that gives it context, and most of the data that is needed for powering AI ends up being unstructured. So all of a sudden, search in the age of AI has now become incredibly important, way more important than ever before. And that's the reason why when we talk about search these days, it's about, people will either call it search AI or AI search, but somehow search and AI seem to be now locked in together, like in the US, I'd say peanut butter and jelly. In Mumbai, I'd say chai and toast. They go together, hand in hand.
Yeah, all right. So since we're talking about the search bit, now with AI, a lot of things have changed. Do you think now with even Google, say Google is known as the search thing.
Yeah.
But do you see a future where Google's search engine would not be really prominent anymore, and a lot of these elastic kind of platforms and similar ones would take us down?
I think you're going to always have two types of search problems. One is search that deals with data that's broadly on the internet, publicly available data. And that's really the problem that Google solved. And there are newer entrants that are trying to establish themselves in that space because of AI. Obviously, OpenAI is probably the most prominent, well-known one. You use ChatGPT today for the kinds of things that in the past you would have used Google for. There is a second kind of search problem, which is searching on all the data inside your organizational boundary. Google doesn't have any insight into that because it can't look within your organization. Even ChatGPT cannot look within your organization. So that's really the problem that Elastic solves. So we don't play in the public data search domain. We play in the private data search domain. And there are all kinds of estimates of how much data organizations all around the world generate on a daily basis. And it's massive. It's exabytes of information that's being created. And that data is very rich in meaning. It's very rich in context. And there's a lot of value that you can create if you're able to automate decision-making, business processes based on the ability to search and make decisions on that data. So really, I would expect that the Googles and ChatGPT, OpenAIs of the world will compete on public information, and we will really, be very strong on the private search area.
Do you see them getting into the private search area as well?
They are. I think there are basic differences between the two domains, right? The monetization model is very different. So when you're dealing with something like a Google or ChatGPT has publicly talked about their interest in doing this, on the public data, the monetization model ends up being ads. On the private data, it's a more B2B style selling motion. It's a very different model. The algorithms that are used, so the technology is also very, very different in what is needed for public data versus private data. And when you're talking about public data, people talk about LLMs and people talk about context windows and so on. When you're dealing with private data, people talk about context engineering and how do you provide relevant information. So you'll hear things like retrieval augmented generation and context engineering and so on. So technologies are different, monetization models are different, and for that reason, businesses also tend to be very different because it's very hard to try and do both. And there isn't much precedence of anybody that has been able to do both well.
Got it. And in your Elastic's customer base itself, now with AI in the picture, can you throw some light on the kind of specific requirements that customers have? Are they looking for anything specific in AI itself that they want?
People's usage of AI is starting to become more and more mature, more and more sophisticated. And so the importance of relevance is now greater than ever before. And I'll give you an example of what that might mean. So imagine I'm building a chatbot, and it's a very simple question and answer kind of a chatbot where I'm creating it for employees of an organization to be able to find information about the company's policies, my vacation policy if I live in the US versus India, or my expense policy, how much am I able to expense, etc. If you don't give the accurate context to the large language model, then it might hallucinate and you might get a wrong answer, but the harm done will be relatively small. You just get a wrong answer. Your expense policy might have been 100 rupees, but it might say 300 rupees. So, okay, fine. You get into a little bit of trouble, but not that big of a deal. On the other hand, now let's imagine you're building an agent that is going to do airline bookings for you, right? It's going to actually help you with creating a travel itinerary and then do bookings and so on. You can't allow that agent to hallucinate, because if that agent hallucinates, it might book you on a flight that doesn't exist. Just as you know, LLMs have been known to hallucinate because if they don't know the answer, they make stuff up. In that sense, they're very much like human beings. So you have to provide very accurate context to these large language models. And so the importance of relevance is super important. So those are the kinds of requirements we are now getting from our customers, where they're saying, help us tune the relevance right. Help us ensure that we get the most accurate context through your platform, your data retrieval and context engineering platform. Our customers are also asking us for choice of which LLM to use, because OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, all of them are constantly, through their investments, getting better. And customers want to know, which one do I use for which particular purpose? There are also open source LLMs that are evolving. So there are all these factors that mean that the job of building agents is getting harder and more complicated. And so the last thing that we are getting asked for is, make it easy for us. Make it easy. So give us the best relevance, do it in such a way that I have choice, and then make it easy by providing the developer tooling that would allow me to do it in a very simple way in one single platform. So that's what we are focused on from an engineering standpoint, and it's helping.
And now there's more focus on agentic AI, right? I mean, I think you spoke about it in today's event as well. If you could just talk about that a bit.
Agentic, when people talk about agents and agentic AI, I think it's just a new way to describe what people have been doing for the last couple of years. And it's really about building something, an application, or something that leverages the large language model almost like an operating system, right? So the way I think about it is, 40 years ago, you had an operating system and you used a language like C or C++ or Java to build programs and computer applications on it. Today, the operating system is the large language model. It's the LLM that has the ability to do prediction and reasoning and so on. And the way you code is, instead of writing the code in Java or C++ or C, you code in English. Right? Because it's prompts. You're prompting and you're providing prompts to the LLM, and then you are using those prompts to ensure that you can guardrail and avoid hallucinations and so on. And then you're using a platform like Elastic to provide the right context to then help the LLM do its job. So in that kind of a model, right, it becomes really, really important to think of these things that you're building as having the ability to go from a helper to a human being all the way to something that's more autonomous. Okay. And that's where the name agent has really come from, but it's new name for the fun thing that we've been doing for the last few years.
And these agents, do you see a future where it will be fully autonomous, where a human will not be involved at all for any of the operations?
I genuinely believe that it's going to be a spectrum. And you see that even today, right? So you have, let's take the coding space, like software development space. You have something like a GitHub Copilot. That's a Copilot. Yeah. So the human is driving the process and the Copilot is helping you. All the way to a vibe coding platform like Cursor, where the AI is driving the process and the human is verifying. Right? Absolutely. And I think that those will be the two ends of the spectrum, and we will sort of navigate through it. There might be in the future processes that you completely delegate to an agent and you say, like, just do this for me. But I think it'll take us time to get there because, imagine I live in San Francisco, so I see Waymo autonomous driving cars all the time. Yeah. And I've taken rides in them, and they seem magical almost. You get into them and they're driving by themselves. But even then, there is a human somewhere, not in the loop, but if something goes wrong, there's a human to verify and take corrective action and so on. So I think you're always going to have, for a long period of time, some amount of safeguards, because of which, what people think of as fully autonomous might still involve a human somewhere in the system to be able to step in as needed. And for the autonomy itself, as time goes by and these systems become more and more robust, I think we will delegate more to these AI systems, but it's going to be a journey. It won't happen overnight.
Got it. And if you could just speak about the competitive landscape for Elastic. Now you have companies like Pinecone and V8. They're into vector search, and I think that's also being a go-to product for a lot of people. So where does Elastic fit in this equation? How do they stand out in this whole ecosystem?
Yeah, I don't believe that vector databases are a standalone business or a standalone product, and I've said that for many years now. It's a feature, not a product. There are certain types of data, there are certain types of problems for which you need vector search, but vector search is a part of the equation, not the whole problem set. Yeah. And so you need to use multiple techniques. There are models involved, there is hybrid search, there are facets and filters that you need to apply. And so my belief is that most of these businesses will eventually become part of some other organization. This won't exist as a standalone business. And the major data platforms that are out there, Elastic being one of them, will end up being the ones that provide vector search just as a functionality for the kinds of data that sits in that data platform. Our greatest strength is in unstructured data. That's what we tend to truly be very pervasive in. We are the platform that unstructured, the most widely deployed platform in the world for unstructured data. Over 5.5 billion downloads over the years. So just massive scale, massive developer ecosystem. That data will always come into Elastic. I think the vector pure plays over time probably will find it harder and harder to be a business.
Got it. And Elastic is into, say, search, security, observability. So as a CEO, do you prioritize one over the other, or it's just equal attention to all?
That's a great question. I think it's really important to understand why are we in those businesses, right? And maybe if I help you understand that, then the answer will be more obvious. Okay. The reason why we got into observability and security is because the data that is involved in observability and security is highly unstructured, messy data. It's application logs, network logs, web logs, and that kind of data is really hard to put into a database. It naturally fits into something like an Elasticsearch, where you can analyze it, you can search across it, you can visualize it, you can use ML and AI to make decisions on it, and that's how we got into it. So from our perspective, it's always been a platform strategy that we build a platform that is really good at one thing, which is search and AI, and then every solution that depends on that type of data, we believe is a solution area that we can go into. And so naturally, we tend to take that same advantage and succeed in observability and security. And so I don't have to do 3 different things to win. Okay. I just have to do one thing to win in 3. And that's been the secret to our success.
Got it. And from your customers, you have a lot of developers, you have a lot of enterprises. Yeah. So who gives you the biggest challenges or the kind of problems that you have with?
Developers give me the most joy. I started my career as a developer, then became a product manager before I got onto the business side of things, and I still think of myself as a recovering product manager, I take great joy in working with our developers and our community because we get great ideas from them. They are the creators. They use our platform to do things that we hadn't thought of. We talked a little while ago about observability and security. How we got into those spaces was because we saw our community using our platform for security and for observability, and it was an aha moment for us. We went, wow, that's amazing. We didn't even realize that it could be used that way. That's a business we should go into. So I find developers to really teach us, so we value their input. This is a developer conference that we are at right now, ElasticON Bengaluru. Our enterprise customers are always going to be important to us. At the end of the day, they're the ones who pay the bills. And we wouldn't be who we are if it weren't for the relationships that we have with them. 54%, over 54% of the Fortune 500 are our customers. Some of the largest government agencies around the world are our customers. So we are very grateful to the support and confidence that they place in us. But if you ask me, where do I like to spend my time? It's learning from developers so we can then do interesting things that help all our customers, including our enterprises.
Got it. And since you mentioned you're a coder at heart, I could say a developer, you're very close to them. So in the current ecosystem of how coding is going on, like vibe coding, the way coders are now using these platforms, what is your take on it? Like, what are your thoughts on the way it's going?
Well, today, so first of all, we encourage the use of all of these AI tools within our own organization. We have certified a whole bunch of, I think, 5 or so different tools, vibe coding tools within the company, and we encourage developers to use it and say, give us feedback. What are you liking? What are you not liking? What is it good for? What we've seen is that it's really good at generating automated tests for QA, etc. We found tremendous value in creating user experiences, so UI development. Sort of back-end manipulation of large code bases, we haven't seen that much success in. But I suspect that these models will get better and vibe coding platforms will get better. So I'm a believer. I think, when I was in school and I was studying to be a developer, so studying to be an engineer, we focused a lot on how to code, right? Yeah. The syntax of coding, etc. I think the syntax of coding is going to be less relevant going forward because these vibe coding tools understand the syntax. They know exactly how to frame things. So you're not gonna sit down and learn Python or learn Rust or whatever like you used to 10, 20 years ago. Yeah. However, systems thinking is going to be just as important, if not even more important. And what I mean by systems thinking is, how do I take a problem, decompose it thoughtfully, turn it into modules, and have a clear understanding of how these modules interact with each other. And then I will use vibe coding tools to go ahead and write the code fragments that I need to assemble this application together. But if you don't have that systems level view, that systems level thinking, the vibe coding platform is going to be a tool in the hands of somebody who has no idea what they're doing, and nothing good has ever come out of that, right? So what we teach our kids in schools and colleges, I think will change because of AI, but the importance of things like mathematics, the importance of systems thinking, the importance of truly understanding resilience in systems and all of that will be even more magnified. And it's going to be a journey. I think we are going to learn. I have young children. I have a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old, and an 8-year-old. And so I worry about some of these things. But I keep reminding myself that even when calculators became incredibly easy to have in school, we still taught our kids, and we still teach our kids, mathematics tables, right? So we teach them multiplication, long-form division in school even today. They don't need it. You have a calculator in your phone, but we still teach them because we want them to be able to critically understand the problem and then make sure that they can verify the result that they see from a calculator if they need to. I think you're going to have to, as a society, are going to have to do the same kind of approach for AI. We are going to need to teach kids the basics of systems thinking, the basics of computer science, the basics of automata theory, and so on, so they can understand the outputs of these AI systems and make sure that they can verify what AI is creating for them. So it's going to be a fun journey.
Sounds interesting. Just talking about the Elastic's India presence, can you just talk about how important is this country?
It's incredibly important. It's incredibly important in 2 ways. One is, the 4th largest economy in the world with a massive ambition around technology and so on. you have to make a bet on that country, right? So as a business market, we see a lot of value here. And not just for businesses that are based here in India and building here in India, but there are two additional forces that make this a super interesting market. One is the GCCs, over 1,700 GCCs here now. So some of the largest companies around the world that we work with all have huge presences in India, and they have key decision makers within the organizations who are based here in India. So we do a lot of work with GCCs here. The other thing is the VC ecosystem here has become really mature now. And so now you see businesses that are being funded to build organizations and products and businesses that can be global, that can be started here in India, but serve the global market and aspire to be global brands. So you have to be in on the ground floor, as they say, right? You be close to them. So that's one big thing. The second big reason why India is important is it's still one of the most interesting talent pools in the world. If you're looking for talent when it comes to people with STEM skills, so science, technology, engineering, and math, and English speaking especially, where else will you go? So we find this place to be a place. We are a globally distributed company. We have employees in 42 countries. India is our second largest company by employee strength, just barely behind the US. The US is first, but not by much. So India has gone from almost nothing to the current size in just about 4.5 years. So we are continuing to grow. We are continuing to invest. Every function has employees here, whether it's HR and marketing, sales, finance, support, engineering. We have it all here. I think the government focus on AI potentially is also going to be very exciting for us from that perspective, because if it leads to more engineering talent coming out of schools with a bias towards AI, I think that's going to make the Indian market an even more exciting market from a talent perspective. So yeah, all in all, we are very excited.
And what is Elastic's vision for the next 5 years?
To be the company that is part of every organization's infrastructure stack for AI context. Anytime you're building an AI agent, I want you to depend on Elastic to be that cornerstone that you build on top of, with your data sitting in Elastic and us helping you power the development of AI for everything from simple chatbots that help you in small little tasks to very complex semi-autonomous systems and autonomous systems that might be automating major business processes for you.
Got it, Ashutosh. And just one last question, not related to Elastic, but do you have a favorite chatbot?
Favorite chatbot? I don't know if I have a favorite chatbot. I have been known to use and abuse all of the LLMs out there. So I tend to use Claude a fair bit. I'm a big fan of Claude. I think the work that Anthropic is doing is pretty amazing.
Is it with the coding bit? I mean, you like
with Claude Code, but also just Claude overall. Like, I think their chatbot is. I find it to be quite interesting. OpenAI still continues to be one of the most exciting platforms out there from a technology standpoint. I think Gemini is getting more and more exciting. I think the Google teams are catching up faster than most people had expected. So. There's a lot of interest, but if you have to ask me, what's the one that is my go-to, I'd say Claude is probably where I go more. But they're all fun. They're all very interesting. Even Grok, they're all interesting.
Yeah, okay, so you play around with everyone.
I'm equal opportunity player when it comes to all of them.
And you've seen the recent news on the NVIDIA OpenAI Oracle partnership.
Yeah.
I mean, I forgot to ask that question. So where do you see all this leading to with all the big players, the infra players?
Yeah. Right now, what's going on is this mad rush to build more and more capacity, more and more compute to make these models more and more powerful. I think there are two questions that are being asked. One is, will this ever pay off, right? And that's a good question. So there are going to be some truly successful players, and I think some will not be as successful. But I'm a believer that the use cases that AI is powering are very secular. And I go back to when I first started my career in the 90s. Like, the internet was really coming of age. And in those early days, there was a lot of spending that was happening at the infrastructure layer. People were spending on laying out fiber, networking was a big area, storage and compute for the servers that you needed to connect systems to each other. Like, that's where all the spend was happening, at the infrastructure layer. And it took a while for the spending and the value to move up the stack from that infrastructure layer to the software layer and then the application layer. But over the years, what you saw was two things. One, in that early phase when there was massive spending in one, those players didn't end up always being the winners at the end, right? There were companies like JDS Uniphase that most people don't even remember of now. Cisco was one of the early winners of that area, but they are no longer one of the largest organizations today. And new players emerged that were higher up on the stack, like Google, like Amazon, et cetera. And all of them took advantage of the internet, this new paradigm, in new and interesting ways. So I think that same kind of phenomena will play itself out. And right now, the energy is all at that infra layer, but it's going to shift up over the coming years, in my opinion.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ashutosh. This has been truly insightful.
Thank you very much.
In the AI gold rush, everyone's chasing models, but Elastic is digging where the real value lies, in the data that fuels them. As Ashutosh put it, AI is only as good as the context that shapes its intelligence. And if that's true, Elastic isn't just part of the AI story. It's the foundation it stands on. That's all we have on this episode of Point Break. I'm Vandana Nair. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and think AI, think AIM.